Chapter 7. Leaving West Virginia. Ronnie begins. 35-year civil service career. Ronnie worked in the coal mines at High Coal, West Virginia, until late 1950. Then he was laid off because the mines were running out of coal and about to close down in the area where he worked. His work area was 2 to 3 miles underground inside the mountain. After he was laid off, he worked around his father's auto repair shop and sometimes in the restaurant. Around the first week of February 1951, Hal Miller, a friend of Ronnie, suggested that he and Ronnie go together to Dayton, Ohio, and look for work. Dayton was about 240 miles west of Sylvester, West Virginia. Ronnie talked it over with me, and we both agreed. So they departed by Greyhound bus the very next morning. They had a rough time getting around for the first week because of an unusually heavy snowstorm in the Dayton area. But both of them did find work. Hallie went to work for the Sunshine Biscuit Company, where he worked until he retired many years later. Ronnie went to work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with the Material Command as a supply clerk with a civil service grade of GS4. His salary was $2,875 per year, and he was to bring home a paycheck for $107.50 every 2 weeks. I was most anxious to join Ronnie. as soon as possible. So when Hallie's wife Pauline suggested that we drive to Dayton to join them, I was ready. They hadn't been gone more than 2 weeks, but it seemed much longer. I knew that Ronnie didn't have money yet, and I had only $10, so I took along some canned goods from my garden and a few cooking utensils to keep us eating. We managed to rent a one-room efficiency apartment at 9 Plum Street in Dayton for $10 per week. And somehow, Ronnie and I, plus the 2 children, survived in that one room for the next 18 months. At first, Ronnie managed to get a $20 advance on his salary, and he pawned his gold Rolex watch for another $15. This would have amounted to about $175 in 1993 dollars, so that was enough to pull us through until payday. We had to set up housekeeping, so we needed all that we could rake and scrape at that time. Hallie and Pauline were a little older than we were, and were a little better off for money. They had a good automobile and had 2 children a few years older than our 2. They quickly settled into a house not too distant from us, and we saw them often until we left Dayton 18 months later to go with Ronnie's division to Robbins Air Force Base near Macon, Georgia. Days in Dayton, not so good. Those months in Dayton were not some that we would like to live through again. There were too many taverns in the vicinity, and Ronnie spent a good deal of his spare time in one or more of them. I must add, though, that Ronnie always thought of the family first and kept his bills paid up to date. He only spent money on his favorite drink, which was beer, when we had some left over after groceries were bought and bills were paid. In fact, we managed to save about $400 during that time. That would amount to roughly $2,000 in 1993 money, which is exactly the amount that we can place in our IRA, individual retirement system. Annually in 1993, Ronnie Jr. started kindergarten while we lived in Dayton. He was 5 years old and very bright for his age. He came home one day, soon after he started to school, and complained loudly to us that they wouldn't teach him to read, but wanted to waste his time by having all the kids lay their heads on their desks and take a nap. We would have never thought of letting him walk to or from school by himself, especially because of the complexity of the route to school. But one day I looked up and saw him walking in early from school by himself. I was horrified, but he said, "Oh, it's all right, Mama. I took a shortcut." My near heart attack ended with a big sigh of relief. Amusing event. Another amusing event in the life of our children in those days was provided by Deanie. She was about 4 years old when I heard her engaged in a very serious argument with a little playmate. She was standing her ground very well. The argument was about who had the greatest grandpa. After they had run out of good things to say about their grandpas, and it was Deanie's turn to top what had just been said by the other little girl. She thought for a moment, and then proudly announced, "My grandpa is bald-headed, and yours isn't." That finished the argument. How could anyone top such an attribute as that? It was time for the 2 4-year-olds to return to play that had preceded the argument. Our children were both very intelligent. We were without a clock for a short time, but there was a big church building nearby with a large clock in the tower. I would send little Ron Jr. downstairs and out onto the sidewalk, where he could see the clock, and he would return and report the time to me. At first, he would tell me the position of the hands, but soon he was telling me the time. I thought that was just great for a 5-year-old child. Another child lost. I became pregnant again, probably in May 1951. But while on a visit to West Virginia during Labor Day celebrations, I had a miscarriage and lost the baby. It would have been a little boy. We could see that it had already developed fingernails and toenails. I came very near losing my own life too. I was very ill, and even after we returned home to Dayton, I had to be rushed to the hospital because of loss of blood. After that episode, we never tried again to have children. In retrospect, we would have liked to have had some more. But when one goes through the pain and the scare that I had just gone through, one does not want to repeat it. Our medical knowledge and facilities are so much improved and better now than 40 years ago that I would feel safe now. But age has caught up with me, and I won't need to worry about such things as future pregnancy. But we are grateful for the 2 that we had. First of many promotions. The next thing of real importance was that Ronnie received the first of many promotions that he would receive. This promotion came at a time when more money was really needed, and it was most welcome. Because in May or June of 1952, we received word that Ronnie's office would move to Robins Air Force Base, Warner Robins, Georgia, in August 1952. We needed to save as much as possible so that we could purchase a house at our new destination.